A little boy was selling cookies. A millionaire lady went to help and was shocked to discover. The bitter winter wind howled through Manhattan's streets as 8-year-old Nathan stood outside the luxury restaurant, his small hands trembling as he held a tray of homemade cookies. Snowflakes danced around him, settling on his worn-out jacket, an oversized Kappa hand-me-down that barely kept his ears warm. Fresh cookies. Only $2, his voice cracked, barely audible above the city's noise. Businessmen in expensive suits rushed past, their eyes fixed on smartphones, while tourists huddled together, seeking shelter from the biting cold. Nathan had been standing there since sunrise, having sold only 3 packets of the 20 his mother had lovingly baked that morning. Inside the restaurant, Sarah Thompson sat alone at her usual corner table, absently stirring her untouched coffee. Through the frost-kissed window, she caught glimpses of the small figure outside. Something about his determination stirred a long-buried memory, but she pushed it away, just as she had done countless times before. Nathan's vision began to blur. He hadn't eaten since yesterday's dinner a small bowl of soup he'd insisted his sick mother finish instead. The world started spinning, the elegant restaurant sign above him transforming into a kaleidoscope of golden lights. Still, he straightened his back, remembering his promise, "I'll sell them all today, Mom. We'll have enough for your medicine." The cookie tray suddenly felt heavier. His knees buckled, and the world tilted sideways. The carefully wrapped cookies scattered across the snow-covered sidewalk as Nathan collapsed. The last thing he saw was a pair of designer heels rushing toward him, and a woman's voice calling for help. Sarah had watched in horror as the boy fell. Without thinking, she rushed outside, her expensive cashmere coat catching snowflakes as she knelt beside him. "Someone call an ambulance," she commanded, cradling the boy's head. His skin felt like ice against her manicured hands. As she waited for help to arrive, Sarah noticed a crumpled photograph partially falling out of Nathan's pocket, a woman in a hospital bed, smiling weakly at the camera. Her heart stopped. The woman's face, though gaunt with illness, was unmistakable. It was the same face that had haunted her dreams for 15 years, the face of the daughter she had abandoned. The sound of approaching sirens filled the air, but Sarah couldn't move. In that moment, she realized that this wasn't just any child selling cookies in the snow, this was her grandson. If this story touched your heart, and you'd like to discover more inspiring tales of family, love, and redemption, please consider subscribing to our channel. Every subscription helps us create meaningful content that reminds us of the power of hope and second chances in life. In a cramped one-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Manhattan, 8-year-old Nathan Miller lived with his mother, Emily, in a world far removed from the glittering skyline visible from their window. Their home, though small and sparsely furnished, was kept immaculately clean, a testament to Emily's determination to provide dignity despite their circumstances. Emily, once a promising art teacher, now spent most days confined to their worn-out couch, her body weakened by an illness that seemed to consume more of her strength each passing day. Medical bills piled up on their small kitchen table, their edges worn from Emily's constant handling as she tried to figure out how to make ends meet. The refrigerator hummed emptily, its shelves holding little more than basic necessities and ingredients for their cookie business. At school, Nathan faced his own daily battles. The other children, dressed in brand-name clothes and carrying expensive lunchboxes, made sure he never forgot his place among them. They mocked his second-hand uniforms and the cookies he sold, calling him Cookie Boy in sneering tones. His teacher, Mrs. Davidson, though kind, couldn't help casting pitying glances his way when she thought he wasn't looking. One particularly cruel incident had left a lasting mark. During lunch period, a group of boys led by Tommy Richardson, the wealthy school board president's son, had knocked Nathan's cookie tray to the ground. "My dad says your mom's probably faking being sick to get money," Tommy had taunted. Nathan had stood there, watching his carefully wrapped cookies scatter across the cafeteria floor, fighting back tears as other students laughed. But Nathan never told Emily about these incidents. Instead, he would come home, kiss her pale cheek, and proudly present whatever money he'd managed to earn that day. "Look, Mom, 5 people bought cookies today," he would announce, carefully counting out the crumpled dollar bills. Emily would smile, her heart breaking at the sight of her son's small hands, sometimes bearing burns from his attempts at baking. Their evening ritual never varied. After finishing his homework at the corner of his mother's bed, Nathan would help her to the kitchen. Together they would bake cookies for the next day's sales, Emily teaching him from her chair while he measured ingredients with intense concentration. "Remember, sweetheart," she would say, "it's not just about the recipe. Each cookie carries a piece of love to whoever buys it." And the neighbors in their building, though struggling themselves, looked out for the small family in their own ways. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door would sometimes bring over leftover soup, while Mr. Jenkins, the retired mailman, would keep an eye on Nathan when he sold cookies near the subway station. They recognized in Emily and Nathan a quiet dignity that transcended their circumstances. At night, after tucking his mother into bed and making sure her medicine was within reach, Nathan would curl up on their threadbare couch, which served as his bed. In these quiet moments, he would often pull out the photograph he always carried, a picture of his mother in healthier days, standing before her art class, her smile radiant and full of life. "I'll make you smile like that again, Mom." He would whisper into the darkness, his young shoulders carrying a burden no child should bear. Despite their hardships, Nathan maintained an unwavering spirit that amazed everyone who took the time to notice. He approached each day with determination, his mother's strength flowing through his veins. While other children his age spent their afternoons playing video games or attending after-school activities, Nathan had mastered the art of patient persistence, standing for hours in various spots around the city, holding his tray of cookies with pride rather than shame. Their story was one of quiet courage, of a mother and son facing impossible odds together, bound by a love that transformed their daily struggles into moments of grace. In their small corner of the vast city, they had created their own world, one where hope was baked fresh each morning, where love was measured in cups and teaspoons, and where dignity was preserved in the face of mounting adversity. 15 years ago, Emily Miller's life changed forever on a cold December morning. At 12 years old, she stood in her family's luxurious penthouse apartment, watching in disbelief as her mother, Sarah Thompson, packed a small suitcase with trembling hands. "It's for the best," Sarah had said, avoiding her daughter's eyes. "The boarding school will give you opportunities I can't." That was the last time Emily saw her mother for over a decade. The prestigious boarding school turned out to be a state-run foster care facility, where Emily learned to navigate life without the comfort of family. Her father had passed away years earlier, and now her mother, the powerful CEO of Thompson Industries, had chosen her career over her only child. In the foster system, Emily discovered both cruelty and kindness. She moved between homes, carrying only a small photo album and her father's old watch. Some families treated her as little more than a monthly check, while others tried but couldn't break through the walls she'd built around her heart. Through it all, she clung to her passion for art, finding solace in colors and shapes when words failed her. At 18, Emily attempted to reconnect with Sarah. She stood in the lobby of Thompson Tower, wearing her best thrift store dress, heart pounding as she requested to see her mother. Sarah's response came via her assistant, a check for $50,000, and a note suggesting Emily use it to start a new life somewhere else. The rejection cut deeper than the abandonment had. Instead of cashing the check, Emily turned it into a paper airplane and launched it into the Manhattan wind. She enrolled in art school on scholarship, supporting herself by teaching children's art classes at a community center. It was there she met James, Nathan's father, a charming photography student who captured her heart with his kind eyes and gentle soul. Their love story blazed bright but brief. When Emily discovered she was pregnant, James promised to stand by her. However, the pressure from his wealthy family, who threatened to cut him off completely, proved too much. He disappeared one morning, leaving only a note and a small sum of money. Emily later learned he had been sent to Europe to focus on his career, a euphemism for keeping the family name untarnished. Yet Emily's greatest act of strength came 3 years ago when successful real estate developer Michael Andrews proposed marriage. Michael had seemed perfect, wealthy, kind, and genuinely fond of Nathan. He offered financial security and access to the best medical care. But during their engagement dinner, Emily overheard him discussing plans to send Nathan to boarding school, to learn proper manners and forget his unfortunate background. That night, Emily returned the ring. She chose her son over comfort, her integrity over security. Even as her health began to fail and medical bills mounted, she never regretted that decision. "We have everything we need in each other," she would tell Nathan, though her heart ached at the sacrifices her choice forced upon him. The genetic disease that had claimed her grandmother's life now threatened Emily's own. She recognized the symptoms, the fatigue, the weakness, the same ones that had haunted her childhood memories of her grandmother. Sometimes, in her darkest moments, she wondered if this was why Sarah had abandoned her to avoid watching her daughter suffer the same fate. Despite everything, Emily maintained her dignity and compassion. She taught Nathan to meet cruelty with kindness, to find beauty in small moments, and to never let circumstances define his worth. Their cookie business, born from necessity, became a symbol of their resilience. Each batch was made with love, each sale a small victory against despair. In her quiet moments, while Nathan slept, Emily would sometimes pull out the last photo taken of her and Sarah together. In it, they were smiling, her mother's arms wrapped protectively around her. The photo served as a reminder not of what she had lost, but of the kind of mother she had chosen to be. She vowed that Nathan would never know the pain of feeling unwanted, unloved, or abandoned. Now, as her illness progressed and their struggles deepened, Emily held on to hope not for herself, but for Nathan. She poured her remaining strength into creating memories with him, teaching him the values that would carry him through life, and showing him that true wealth lay not in bank accounts but in the capacity to love unconditionally. Sarah Thompson stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse office, gazing at the Manhattan skyline she had helped shape. As CEO of Thompson Industries, her name graced buildings across the city, her influence extending from real estate to technology. Yet the empire she had built felt hollow, its grandeur unable to fill the void that had haunted her for 15 years. The magazines painted her as a ruthless businesswoman, the ice queen of Wall Street, who had sacrificed everything for success. They weren't entirely wrong. Her desk held no family photos, only awards and accolades. The wall behind her displayed financial charts rather than memories. Even her assistant of 10 years knew nothing of the daughter she had given up, or the granddaughter that had died of the same genetic disease that now threatened Emily. Every morning, Sarah followed the same routine: designer coffee, briefings on international markets, board meetings where her word was law. She lived in a world of numbers and negotiations, where emotions were seen as weaknesses to be eliminated. Her luxury apartment, spanning the top floor of Thompson Tower, felt more like a museum than a home, pristine, cold, and eternally empty. The decision to send Emily away had been calculated, like every other choice in her life. After watching her own mother waste away from the hereditary illness, Sarah convinced herself she was protecting Emily from the pain of watching history repeat itself. It was easier to be hated than to be helpless. Yet the logic that had seemed so clear 15 years ago now felt like the greatest mistake of her life. Sarah had tried to fill the void with work, with charity galas, with carefully orchestrated public appearances. She dated occasionally successful men who understood the language of power and ambition. But each relationship ended the same way, with polite goodbyes and mutual recognition that she could never offer the emotional connection they sought. Her wealth brought her exclusive access to everything except what she truly yearned for: forgiveness. She had hired private investigators to track Emily over the years, receiving regular reports that gathered dust in a locked drawer. She knew about the art school scholarship, the community center teaching job, even James's abandonment. Each report was a chapter in her daughter's life that she had chosen not to be part of. The annual Christmas cards she sent to Emily's various addresses always returned unopened. The trust fund she had established remained untouched. She had attended Emily's art shows in disguise, standing in the back, pride and regret warring in her heart as she watched her daughter explain her paintings to admirers. But she never found the courage to step forward, to bridge the chasm her choices had created. Recently, sleep had become elusive. She would wake in the night, haunted by memories of Emily's face the day she left, confusion giving way to understanding, then to a hurt so deep it had carved permanent lines in Sarah's soul. The genetic test results she had received last month only confirmed what she had always feared: she carried the same disease that had claimed her mother, that now threatened Emily. Her executive suite included a small room she called her gallery of regrets. Here, hidden from the world, she kept every newspaper clipping about Emily's achievements, every program from her art shows, even a fuzzy security camera photo of her with a small boy Nathan, her grandson, whom she had never met. The room was her penance. A private space where the Ice Queen allowed herself to melt, if only briefly. The corporate jets, the charitable foundation bearing her name, the endless meetings and mergers, none of it could erase the simple truth: Sarah Thompson had everything and nothing. Her power could reshape skylines but couldn't repair the one relationship that mattered most. Her wealth could buy anything except a second chance with her daughter. As she stood in her office that winter morning, watching snowflakes swirl past her window, Sarah felt the weight of her choices more heavily than ever. The empire she had built as a fortress against pain had become a prison of her own making. She was respected, feared, admired, but never loved. The same determination that had driven her to success now left her standing alone at the peak of a mountain she no longer wanted to claim. Little did she know that fate, in the form of a small boy selling cookies in the snow, was about to offer her the redemption she had never dared to hope for. Every morning at 4:30 a.m., while the city still slumbered, Nathan would carefully climb out of his makeshift bed on the couch, trying not to wake his mother. In the small kitchen, illuminated only by his father's old phone propped against a mixing bowl, he would pull up saved YouTube baking tutorials and begin his daily ritual. The kitchen counter, barely reaching his chest, required him to stand on a wooden crate scrounged from behind the local grocery store. His small hands would carefully measure ingredients: flour from the discount store, sugar bought in bulk when on sale, and butter they could only afford when the cookie sales were good. Each ingredient was precious, measured with the precision of someone who knew the cost of waste. Nathan had developed his own system after months of trial and error. Burns on his arms told the story of learned lessons: how to handle hot trays, the importance of oven mitts, the right way to test if cookies were done. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door had taught him to set multiple alarms on the old phone, ensuring nothing would burn while he juggled multiple batches. The recipes themselves had evolved from his mother's original teaching. When Emily's hands became too shaky to demonstrate, Nathan had spent hours watching baking channels, scribbling notes in a worn notebook. He learned that adding an extra egg yolk made the cookies chewier, that chilling the dough resulted in better texture, that different temperatures created different results. His innovations were born of necessity, finding ways to make cheaper ingredients taste expensive. By 6:30 a.m., the first batches would be cooling on every available surface in their tiny kitchen. Nathan wrapped each cookie individually in wax paper, carefully arranging them in neat rows on his selling tray. He had learned that presentation mattered. People were more likely to buy when the cookies looked professional. The clear plastic wrap, bought with his own saved quarters, protected them from city dust and made them look store-bought, as one kind customer had noted. His selling spots were carefully mapped out. Mornings were spent near the subway station, catching commuters rushing to work. Lunch hours found him outside office buildings, where sometimes sympathetic secretaries would buy multiple packages. After school, he would position himself near cafes, where the smell of coffee somehow made his cookies more appealing. Each location had taught him different lessons about people. The morning crowd wanted quick transactions. He learned to have change ready and packages easily accessible. Lunch customers appreciated his sales pitch about homemade quality. Afternoon buyers often asked about his story, so he learned to share just enough to generate sympathy without seeming to beg. The rejections were constant, but Nathan had developed thick skin. He remembered his mother's words, "Every no brings you closer to a yes." Some days, he would only sell a few packages. Other days, kind souls would buy multiple batches or give him extra money, telling him to keep the change. He kept meticulous records in a small notebook, tracking which locations and times yielded the best results. Weather was his biggest challenge. Rain meant trying to keep the cookies dry while hiding under store awnings. Summer heat made the chocolate chips melt. Winter brought its own trials, frozen fingers struggling to make change, feet numbing despite the 2 pairs of socks he wore. But Nathan persevered, understanding that their survival depended on his daily sales. The other street vendors had become unexpected allies. The hot dog seller on 42nd Street would sometimes share his umbrella during sudden downpours. The newspaper vendor near the park would watch his tray when he needed a bathroom break. They recognized in him a fellow warrior in the daily battle for survival on New York streets. Some evenings, Nathan would return home with unsold cookies, his heart heavy with disappointment. On these nights, Emily would pull him close, and together they would dunk the leftover cookies in milk, transforming their failure into a precious moment of mother-son bonding. These were the moments when Nathan felt most like the child he was, rather than the breadwinner he had been forced to become. But regardless of each day's outcome, Nathan maintained his ritual. Every morning he would rise before dawn, tie on his mother's old apron, and begin again. Because in their world of uncertainty, the simple act of baking cookies had become more than just a means of survival. It was his way of fighting back against fate, of proving that even a small boy could make a difference in the face of overwhelming odds. The day Sarah Thompson first noticed Nathan wasn't particularly different from any other. She had just finished another contentious board meeting, her victory hollow as usual. Through her restaurant's frost-covered window, something about the small figure outside caught her attention, perhaps the determined set of his shoulders, or the way he stood straight despite the biting cold. Initially, she tried to ignore him, just as she ignored the many street vendors that populated Manhattan's sidewalks. But there was something hauntingly familiar in his profile, in the way he smiled at rejection and straightened his shoulders after each dismissal. It reminded her of another child, years ago, who had shown the same resilience in the face of adversity, her daughter Emily. Sarah found herself watching him throughout her lunch, her untouched salad growing warm. The boy couldn't have been more than 8 or 9, yet he carried himself with the gravity of someone much older. His clothes, though clean, were clearly worn and inadequate for the winter weather. The cardboard tray he held was professionally arranged with individually wrapped cookies, showing a pride in presentation that seemed beyond his years. Something compelled her to ask her regular waiter about him. "Oh, the cookie boy James, who had served her lunch for years," replied. "He's here most days, sells them to help his sick mother, from what I hear. Never causes any trouble, unlike some of the other vendors. Always polite, that one." The mention of a sick mother sent a chill through Sarah that had nothing to do with the winter air. She found herself remembering hospital rooms, the smell of antiseptic, watching her own mother waste away from the genetic disease that had haunted their family for generations. The same disease she had tried to protect Emily from by pushing her away. Over the next few days, Sarah found herself changing her schedule to observe the boy. She watched as he stood for hours in different locations, his small frame buffeted by winter winds. She noticed how he would sometimes rub his hands together for warmth, but never abandoned his post. Through her car window, she saw him carefully counting small bills, his expression serious as he tucked them safely away. A private investigator, accustomed to her unusual requests, provided a preliminary report within days. The boy's name was Nathan Miller. His mother was Emily Miller, formerly Emily Thompson, the daughter Sarah had abandoned 15 years ago. The genetic test results Sarah had received last month suddenly felt heavier in her desk drawer. The disease that had driven her to push Emily away was now threatening her daughter's life, just as she had feared. Sarah spent sleepless nights pacing her penthouse, the city lights below offering no comfort. She watched old videos of Emily on her tablet school plays, art shows, moments captured by private investigators over the years. In Nathan's face, she saw echoes of Emily's childhood determination, the same unwavering spirit that both broke her heart and filled her with pride. The revelation of Nathan's identity created a storm of emotions Sarah had long thought herself incapable of feeling. Guilt for the years of absence and the pain she had caused. Fear, knowing that her daughter faced the same disease that had haunted their family. Oh, perhaps foolish that this unexpected connection might offer a chance at redemption. She found herself making excuses to drive past his selling spots, instructing her chauffeur to slow down so she could catch glimpses of her grandson. Each time, the sight of him standing brave against the elements, offering his cookies with unwavering politeness, twisted something deep in her chest. This child, her flesh and blood, was fighting battles no child should face, just as she had forced Emily to do. One particularly cold morning, Sarah watched Nathan arrange his cookies with meticulous care, using a small cloth to wipe snow from his tray. The gesture was so reminiscent of Emily's childhood perfectionism that tears sprang to her eyes, a sensation so foreign she had almost forgotten what it felt like to cry. The Ice Queen of Wall Street, who had built her empire on calculated decisions and emotional detachment, found herself undone by the sight of a small boy selling cookies in the snow. The walls she had constructed around her heart began to crack, letting in feelings she had suppressed for 15 years. Sarah Thompson, who had orchestrated billion-dollar deals without flinching, found herself paralyzed by the simple question of how to approach her own grandson. As she watched Nathan through her office window that fateful winter morning, Sarah realized that some forces were beyond even her control. The empire she had built, the power she wielded, meant nothing in the face of this simple truth: she had been given an unexpected chance to right the wrongs of her past. The moment that would change everything began with a collapse. Nathan had been standing in his usual spot outside the luxury restaurant for hours, the winter wind cutting through his thin jacket. His fingers, red from cold, clutched the cookie tray as his vision began to blur. The world tilted, and suddenly the pristine sidewalk rushed up to meet him. Sarah Thompson, watching from her window seat, moved without thinking. Years of calculated behavior forgotten, she rushed outside, her designer heels clicking against the pavement as she reached the small, crumpled figure. The cookies lay scattered in the snow, their careful wrapping coming undone, each package representing hours of early morning work now ruined. "Someone call an ambulance," her voice, usually reserved for boardroom commands, carried a note of panic that surprised even her. As she knelt beside Nathan, snow soaking through her expensive pantsuit, she noticed how small he looked up close, how his clothes hung loose on his thin frame. His skin felt ice cold against her manicured hands. The restaurant staff rushed out with blankets and hot water. James, her regular waiter, helped her move Nathan onto one of the cushioned benches in the restaurant's heated vestibule. As they waited for the ambulance, Sarah found herself holding the boy's hand, something stirring in her chest that she hadn't felt in 15 years. Nathan's eyes fluttered open, immediately filling with panic at the sight of his scattered goods. "My cookies," he whispered, trying to sit up. "I need to sell them. Mom needs medicine." His voice trailed off as dizziness overwhelmed him again. Sarah felt tears, actual tears, pricking at her eyes. "I'll buy them all," she heard herself say. "Every single one, even the ones in the snow. And tomorrow's batch too." The words came naturally, without the usual careful consideration she gave every business decision. Nathan's eyes widened, a mix of hope and disbelief crossing his young face. "Really?" he asked, his voice small but holding a note of pride. "They're really good, you know. My mom taught me the recipe, but I had to learn to make them myself when she got too sick to stand for long." Each word was like an arrow to Sarah's heart, knowing that this child's struggle was partly her fault. As the paramedics arrived and began checking Nathan's vitals, Sarah noticed a photograph falling from his pocket. Her hands trembled as she picked it up, recognizing Emily immediately despite the changes illness had wrought. Her daughter's face, gaunt but still beautiful, smiled weakly at the camera from a hospital bed. The paramedics determined that Nathan was suffering from exhaustion and mild hypothermia, but would be fine with rest and warmth. Sarah insisted on driving him home herself, overriding the protests of her security team. During the short drive in her heated luxury car, Nathan slowly regained his color, his natural childlike curiosity emerging. "Your car is really nice," he observed, running his hand over the leather seats. "You must be really rich." The directness of his statement, free from either judgment or envy, reminded Sarah so much of Emily at that age that it physically hurt. As they approached his neighborhood, Nathan became more talkative, sharing stories about his cookie business, his school, and most importantly, his mother. Each word painted a picture of the life her daughter had built, a life of hardship but also of deep love and resilience. Sarah listened, memorizing every detail, her heart breaking and healing simultaneously. When they pulled up to the modest apartment building, Nathan hesitated before getting out. "Thank you for buying all the cookies," he said solemnly, "and for the ride. Most people just walk past and don't even look at me." His simple gratitude felt more genuine than any corporate acknowledgement she'd ever received. Sarah watched him climb the worn stairs to his apartment, his small figure silhouetted against the dim hallway light. Before he disappeared inside, he turned and waved, offering a smile that transformed his tired face into something luminous. At that moment, Sarah Thompson, the feared business titan, the woman known for her ruthless decisions, made a promise to herself. This time would be different. This time, she wouldn't let fear drive her actions. This time, she would stay and fight for the family she had abandoned. The empire she had built, the power she wielded, all of it would mean nothing if she couldn't use it to protect her daughter and grandson. As her car pulled away from the curb, Sarah began mentally preparing for the battle ahead. She knew it wouldn't be easy. Trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. But watching Nathan's determined spirit in the face of such adversity had awakened something in her that had been dormant for far too long: hope. The emergency room's harsh fluorescent lights cast an unforgiving glow on Emily's pale face as she lay unconscious on the stretcher. Nathan stood frozen in the doorway, his cookie tray forgotten at his feet, watching as doctors and nurses swarmed around his mother. The morning had started normally, Emily coughing a bit more than usual, but still managing to smile as she helped Nathan pack his cookies. Then, without warning, she had collapsed while reaching for her medicine. Mrs. Rodriguez, their neighbor, had called the ambulance while Nathan held his mother's hand, pleading with her to wake up. Now, in the sterile hospital environment, he felt smaller than ever. The medical terminology flying over his head might as well have been a foreign language: severe respiratory distress, genetic markers, immediate intervention required. Sarah Thompson arrived within minutes of receiving Nathan's trembling phone call. She had given him her card the day before, after driving him home, telling him to call if he ever needed anything. She hadn't expected it to be so soon. The sight of Emily lying there, machines beeping ominously around her, brought back haunting memories of her own mother's final days. "Are you family?" a nurse asked Sarah sharply, clipboard in hand. Before she could respond, Nathan spoke up, his voice stronger than anyone expected. "She's my grandmother. My mom's mom." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Sarah felt tears threatening to fall as she reached for the clipboard, her usually steady hands shaking as she filled out the forms. The doctors delivered their verdict with clinical detachment. Emily needed immediate specialized treatment. Her condition, a genetic disorder affecting the respiratory system, had progressed further than anyone had realized. Without proper medical intervention, her prognosis was grim. Then came the words that made Nathan's world stop. The treatment costs are substantial. Do you have insurance or means to pay? Sarah stepped forward, her CEO persona sliding into place like armor. Cost is not an issue. Give her the best treatment available. The medical team nodded, hurrying away to make arrangements. Nathan looked up at Sarah, his eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. "But why are you helping us?" he asked quietly. Before Sarah could answer, Emily's monitors began blaring. The medical team rushed back in, shouting orders. Nathan tried to run to his mother but was held back by a nurse. Mommy's cry echoed through the emergency room, raw and desperate. Sarah found herself holding him, his small body shaking with sobs against her expensive coat. Hours passed in the waiting room. Nathan refused to leave, curled up in an uncomfortable chair, his cookie tray still clutched protectively. Sarah made calls, pulling strings to get the best specialists, while simultaneously trying to comfort her grandson. The boy who had shown such strength on the streets now looked every bit his 8 years, vulnerable and scared. Finally, a doctor emerged with news. The immediate crisis had passed, but Emily needed long-term care. As he listed the necessary treatments and medications, Sarah noticed Nathan taking notes in his small sales notebook, probably already calculating how many cookies he would need to sell. The sight broke something in her. "Nathan," she said gently, kneeling to meet his eyes, "you don't have to worry about the money. I'm going to help your mum get better." He looked at her suspiciously, years of street-learned wariness visible in his expression. "Why? Nobody helps without wanting something back." Sarah felt the truth rise in her throat, impossible to contain any longer. "Because I made a terrible mistake years ago," she whispered. "I left your mom when she was just a little older than you. I thought I was protecting her, but I was wrong. So wrong. So wrong. And now I want to make things right." Nathan processed this information with the seriousness of someone much older. "Mom cries sometimes looking at old pictures," he said finally. "She thinks I don't see, but I do." Each word felt like a knife in Sarah's heart. "She misses you, I think, even though she never says it." Through the ICU window, they could see Emily, looking small and fragile among the machines keeping her stable. Sarah Thompson, who had faced down corporate raiders and hostile takeovers without flinching, felt utterly helpless before the task of rebuilding what she had destroyed. But watching Nathan's unwavering vigil over his mother, she knew she had to try. "We're going to get through this together," she promised, as much to herself as to Nathan. "All of us." The boy nodded slowly, his hand finding hers in the sterile hospital air. It was a small gesture, but in it lay the first seeds of trust, of healing, of family being rebuilt from the ashes of the past. In Emily's hospital room, the soft beeping of monitors provided a steady rhythm to the tense silence. She had regained consciousness but remained weak, her pale fingers tracing the edges of an old photograph that Nathan had pulled from his cookie-selling apron. Sarah stood by the doorway, her usual confident posture replaced by an uncertainty she hadn't felt in years. "I know who you are," Emily said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I recognized you the moment Nathan described the woman who helped him." Her words carried years of hurt, each syllable weighted with unspoken accusations. Sarah stepped forward, her designer heels silent on the hospital floor, her throat tight with emotions she had suppressed for 15 years. Nathan sat between them, his small hands still clutching his cookie notebook, eyes darting between his mother and the elegant stranger who had suddenly become his grandmother. The family resemblance, now that it was acknowledged, seemed startlingly obvious. The same determined set of the jaw, the same expressive eyes, the same way of holding themselves even in moments of distress. "The day you left," Emily continued, her voice growing stronger with each word, "you told me it was for my own good. That sending me away would give me better opportunities." She held up the photograph, a younger Sarah and Emily at a Central Park carousel, both smiling, unaware of the fractures that would tear them apart. "Was it really for my good? Or was it easier for you to focus on your empire without a child holding you back?" Sarah's carefully constructed facade cracked. "I watched my mother die from this same disease," she confessed, tears falling freely now. "When the doctors told me I carried the gene, that I might have passed it to you, I couldn't bear the thought of you watching me waste away like I watched her. I thought if I pushed you away first, it would hurt less." Nathan, processing this revelation, spoke up with the direct honesty of childhood. "But it hurt more, didn't it?" he asked, looking at his mother. "Like when Dad left, saying it was better for everyone." Emily's breath caught at the unexpected insight from her son, while Sarah felt the full weight of her grandson's unintentional comparison. The tension in the room was broken by a nurse entering to check Emily's vitals. In that moment of interruption, Sarah noticed how Nathan automatically reached for his mother's hand, offering comfort with the instinctive grace of a child who had grown up too fast. It was a gesture that spoke volumes about the kind of mother Emily had become, the kind of mother Sarah had failed to be. "I followed your life from a distance," Sarah admitted after the nurse left. "Every art show, every achievement. I told myself I was protecting you, but really I was protecting myself from facing my own fears." She moved closer to the bed, each step heavy with regret. Watching Nathan these past few days, seeing his strength, his determination to help you, it made me realize what real courage looks like. Emily's fingers tightened around the photograph. "You can't just walk back into our lives and expect everything to be fixed," she said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. "Nathan needs stability, not another person who might disappear when things get difficult." "I know," Sarah responded, her voice steady despite her tears. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but please let me help now. Not to make up for the past, nothing can do that, but because you're my daughter, and he's my grandson, and I've missed too much already." Nathan, who had been quietly observing, suddenly stood up. With the solemnity of a judge delivering a verdict, he pulled out another photograph from his apron pocket, one showing Emily in her hospital bed from a few weeks ago. He placed it next to the old carousel picture. "Look," he said simply, "same smile." The observation, innocent yet profound, caused both women to look at the photos. Despite 15 years of separation, pain and illness, Emily's smile remained unchanged, the same mix of strength and gentleness that she had now passed on to her son. "Maybe," Nathan continued, his voice small but certain, "we could try being a family. Not for the past, but for now." He looked at his mother, then at Sarah. "Mom always says everyone deserves a second chance. Even the mean kids at school who make fun of my cookies." The wisdom in his words, the simple hope in his suggestion, seemed to shift something in the hospital room's atmosphere. Emily reached out, taking Sarah's hand for the first time in 15 years. No words were spoken, none were needed. In that gesture lay the possibility of healing, of forgiveness, of a family being pieced back together, one broken shard at a time. The first days after Emily's hospital release brought challenges that no one had fully anticipated. Sarah had insisted they move into her penthouse apartment, arguing that Emily needed proper care and monitoring. The transition from their modest apartment to the luxurious Thompson residence created immediate tension, highlighting the vast gulf between their worlds. Emily struggled with the loss of independence, bristling at the army of staff Sarah had hired: nurses, housekeepers, personal chefs. "I can still take care of myself," she protested one morning, attempting to make Nathan's lunch despite her weakness. "We've managed just fine until now." Sarah, finding her daughter nearly fainting in the kitchen, had to physically guide her back to bed, their shared stubbornness creating sparks of conflict. Nathan, caught between two strong-willed women, attempted to maintain his cookie-selling routine, despite Sarah's insistence that it was no longer necessary. "But my customers will miss me," he argued, his small face serious. "And Mom says keeping promises is important." The simple statement highlighted the values Emily had instilled in him, making Sarah question her own priorities. Vast differences became glaringly apparent when Nathan's school called about his tuition fees. Sarah had immediately offered to transfer him to an exclusive private school, leading to the first major argument with Emily. "You can't just sweep in and change everything," Emily exploded, her face flushed with anger and exhaustion. "We're not charity cases to be fixed." The staff whispered about the tension, their gossip reaching Sarah's ears through her longtime housekeeper, Margaret. Miss Thompson, Margaret ventured one evening, perhaps they need time to adjust. Not everyone is comfortable with such sudden changes. The implied criticism in her loyal servant's words made Sarah realize how her well-intentioned actions might appear overbearing. Cultural clashes emerged in unexpected ways. When Nathan attempted to help the housekeeping staff clean his room, Sarah found him on his hands and knees scrubbing the floor. "Sweetie, we have people for that," she said gently. Nathan looked up, confusion clear on his face. "But Mum always says we should clean up our own messes. It's not fair to make others do it." The media caught wind of the story business mogul Sarah Thompson's long-lost daughter and grandson moving into her penthouse. Paparazzi began camping outside the building, their presence adding another layer of stress. Emily, already struggling with her health, felt like a specimen under examination. "Is this what your life is always like?" she asked Sarah bitterly. Everything on display. Financial discussions created additional strain. Sarah's attempts to set up trust funds and investment accounts for both Emily and Nathan met with resistance. "We don't want your money," Emily stated firmly. "We want," she trailed off, unable to articulate the more complicated emotional needs that money couldn't satisfy. Nathan's nightmares began about a week into their stay. The staff would hear him crying out in the night, calling for his mother. Despite the luxurious bedroom Sarah had decorated for him, he would often be found sleeping on the floor beside Emily's bed, as he had done in their old apartment when she was too ill to get up. The contrast between their past and present lives became painfully clear during a dinner party Sarah hosted for her board members. Nathan, dressed in new designer clothes that made him look uncomfortably unlike himself, quietly asked one of the serving staff if he could help carry plates. The wealthy guest's condescending smiles made Emily's hands shake with suppressed emotion. Even simple daily routines became battlegrounds. Sarah's professional chef was offended when Emily insisted on teaching Nathan to bake cookies in the industrial-grade kitchen. "This kitchen isn't designed for home baking," he protested. The look of hurt on Nathan's face as he clutched his recipe notebook made Sarah realize how their old life, despite its hardships, had given them something her wealth couldn't replace. The growing tensions reached a breaking point when Sarah discovered Emily attempting to pack their belongings one night. "We don't belong here," Emily said, tears streaming down her face. "This world, your world, it's suffocating us." Sarah, standing in the doorway of the room she had so carefully prepared for her daughter, felt her carefully constructed plans crumbling. Yet amidst these conflicts, small moments of connection emerged. Nathan would sometimes curl up next to Sarah while she worked, asking about the buildings she had helped create. Emily would find herself sharing stories of her art students while Sarah listened, genuinely interested. These glimpses of potential family bonds made the struggles both more worthwhile and more painful. Both women recognized that they were trying to bridge not just 15 years of separation, but two completely different worlds. The question hanging unspoken between them was whether love, even if rediscovered, would be enough to overcome such fundamental differences. But the transition to Sarah's penthouse apartment marked the beginning of a delicate dance between two worlds colliding. The day they moved in, Nathan stood in the marble foyer, his few possessions clutched in a worn backpack, eyes wide as he took in the sprawling space that was supposedly his new home. Emily, still weak from her hospital stay, leaned heavily on Sarah's arm, her face a mixture of awe and apprehension. Sarah had transformed the entire east wing of her penthouse into a family space. But Nathan's room, designed with input from professional decorators, featured everything a young boy could dream of: a gaming system, a study area with a new laptop, and walls adorned with art supplies, acknowledging his growing interest in his mother's passion. Yet on his first night, the staff found him sleeping on the floor, his old sleeping bag from their apartment providing familiar comfort. The kitchen became an unexpected battleground of love and tradition. Despite having a professional chef on staff, Emily insisted on maintaining their morning ritual of baking cookies together. Sarah watched from the doorway one morning as mother and son worked in synchronized harmony, their movements telling a story of years spent in their tiny kitchen, the chef's obvious disdain for their amateur baking. In his professional space went unnoticed by Nathan, who was too absorbed in carefully measuring ingredients using his mother's old cups, rather than the expensive digital scales. Adapting to the constant presence of staff proved challenging. Emily struggled with accepting help, often attempting tasks beyond her strength rather than asking the nurses for assistance. Nathan, accustomed to being his mother's primary caregiver, would hover anxiously whenever the medical staff performed their checks. "I know how to take her temperature," he once insisted, pulling his little medical notebook from his pocket. "I've been doing it for years." Sarah's attempts to give them everything she thought they needed sometimes missed the mark entirely. When she replaced Nathan's worn-out shoes with expensive designer ones, he quietly continued wearing his old pair. "These know the way to our best cookie-selling spots," he explained when asked, making Sarah realize that some things carried value beyond their monetary worth. The building's other residents, accustomed to Sarah's notorious privacy, couldn't help but notice the changes. The sound of childish laughter echoing through the traditionally quiet hallways drew curious glances. Nathan's habit of greeting everyone he met with offers of freshly baked cookies gradually began to thaw the formal atmosphere that had long characterized the exclusive residence. Emily's health improved slowly under the constant care, but her spirit seemed to struggle with the gilded cage of luxury. Sarah would sometimes find her standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city with longing. "We used to be able to see the stars from our apartment," Emily commented one evening. "Here, the city lights are too bright." The observation carried weight beyond its simple meaning. The staff, initially uncertain how to handle the new additions to the household, found themselves drawn into the warmth of Emily and Nathan's presence. Margaret, the head housekeeper who had served Sarah for decades, was discovered teaching Nathan how to properly fold fitted sheets, both of them laughing at their failed attempts. The stern-faced security team began keeping cookies in their break room, specially purchased from Nathan's daily baking. Sarah found herself navigating unfamiliar territory as a grandmother. Her scheduled conference calls were often interrupted by Nathan's excited requests to show her his latest drawings or cookie innovations. Her usually pristine home office gradually accumulated children's artwork, each piece carefully framed and displayed alongside her business awards. The evenings brought their own form of chaos and comfort. Family dinners, a concept foreign to Sarah's usual routine of working late, became a non-negotiable part of their day. Nathan insisted on helping set the table, carefully arranging plates while sharing stories about his day. Emily, though often tired, would make the effort to join them, her presence helping bridge the awkward silences that sometimes fell between mother and daughter. Small victories emerged from the daily challenges. The first time Emily accepted help from a nurse without protest. The morning Nathan chose to wear his new clothes without prompting. The evening Sarah came home early specifically to join them for dinner. Each moment represented a step toward finding balance between their old life and new circumstances. Yet beneath the surface of their adapting routine, deeper changes were taking place. Sarah found herself learning to measure success not in stock prices, but in Nathan's smiles and Emily's improving strength. Emily began to see beyond her initial resentment, recognizing the genuine effort behind her mother's sometimes clumsy attempts at caring. And Nathan, with the resilience of childhood, wove threads between both worlds, creating a tapestry of family that none of them had expected. The penthouse, once a symbol of Sarah's solitary success, gradually transformed into something warmer. Cookie-scented air replaced the sterile atmosphere, Photographs appeared on walls that had previously displayed only abstract art. The sound of Nathan practicing piano, Sarah's well-intentioned but not entirely welcome gift, filled spaces that had known only silence. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, a house was becoming a home. Emily's treatment journey became a family endeavor that transformed all their lives. The best specialists in respiratory genetics, handpicked by Sarah, developed a comprehensive treatment plan. Each day brought new challenges, but also new reasons for hope. Nathan appointed himself his mother's personal medical assistant, carefully recording every medication, every symptom, and every small victory in his cookie sales notebook, now repurposed for tracking his mother's recovery. The medical suite Sarah had installed in the penthouse became a focal point of their daily routine. Emily's initial resistance to the constant monitoring gradually gave way to acceptance as her strength began to return. The nurses, won over by Nathan's dedication, taught him to properly read the vital sign monitors, incorporating his need to help into their professional care. His small face would light up with pride whenever he could report improvements in his mother's numbers. Sarah threw herself into research, spending hours in consultation with doctors and medical researchers. Her business acumen, usually focused on market trends and profit margins, now turned to understanding genetic markers and treatment protocols. Board meetings were rescheduled around Emily's therapy sessions, marking a shift in priorities that surprised even her closest associates. The Ice Queen of Wall Street was melting, transformed by the warmth of family bonds being rebuilt. Physical therapy sessions became a family affair. Nathan would count out loud during Emily's breathing exercises, while Sarah stood ready with water and encouragement. The therapist noted how Emily pushed herself harder when both her son and mother were present, drawing strength from their combined support. Small improvements, walking longer distances, climbing stairs without getting winded, laughing without coughing, were celebrated like major victories. The genetic counseling sessions proved particularly challenging, forcing both Sarah and Emily to confront their shared medical history. The disease that had driven them apart now became a bridge to understanding. Emily learned about her grandmother's battle with the same condition, while Sarah finally shared her fears about passing on the gene. Nathan, sitting between them during these discussions, would hold both their hands, his presence somehow making the difficult conversations easier. Alternative therapies were incorporated alongside traditional treatments. Emily's art therapy sessions, initially met with skepticism by the medical team, proved remarkably effective at reducing her stress levels. The sunroom was converted into a studio where she could paint while receiving her treatments. Nathan would often join her, creating his own artwork alongside his mother, while Sarah found herself drawn to these peaceful moments, sometimes adding her own inexpert attempts at painting. The breakthrough came gradually. First, Emily could make it through a whole day without needing supplemental oxygen. Then she managed to join Nathan in the kitchen, standing long enough to teach him new recipes. The color returned to her cheeks, and her voice grew stronger. Each improvement was meticulously documented in Nathan's notebook, his childish handwriting recording the miracle of his mother's recovery. Sarah's corporate efficiency proved unexpectedly valuable in managing Emily's care. She created spreadsheets tracking treatment effectiveness, coordinated with multiple specialists, and ensured every aspect of Emily's recovery was optimized. Yet she also learned to step back, recognizing that sometimes what Emily needed most was simply her presence, not her problem-solving skills. The hospital visits became less frequent as Emily's condition stabilized. During one checkup, her primary physician remarked on the unprecedented speed of her recovery. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," he advised, unable to fully explain the remarkable improvement in her test results. Nathan solemnly suggested it was the healing power of his cookies, earning chuckles from the medical team and tears from both his mother and grandmother. A community formed around Emily's recovery. Other patients with similar genetic conditions reached out after hearing her story. Sarah found herself funding research into genetic respiratory diseases, while Emily began sharing her experience through art therapy sessions with other patients. Nathan's cookies became a regular feature in the hospital's family waiting room, offered freely to others going through their own medical journeys. As Emily's strength returned, so did her spirit. The woman who had faced life's hardships alone now found herself supported by not just her son, but by her mother and an entire team dedicated to her well-being. She began to dream again of teaching art, of painting large canvases, of watching Nathan grow up without the shadow of illness hanging over them. The treatment journey changed them all. Sarah learned that true healing involved more than just the best medical care money could buy. Emily discovered that accepting help didn't mean losing independence. And Nathan, while maintaining his role as chief cookie baker and unofficial medical assistant, slowly began to remember how to be simply a child again, secure in the knowledge that both his mother and grandmother were there to catch him if he fell. The media frenzy erupted without warning. Business titan's secret family found selling cookies on streets screamed the headlines. Paparazzi camped outside their building, desperate for photos of the cookie-selling boy who had melted the Ice Queen's heart. Emily's past as Sarah's abandoned daughter became fodder for tabloid speculation, while Nathan's story of selling cookies to save his mother sparked a social media storm. The attention brought unexpected complications. Nathan's school life changed dramatically once his classmates discovered his connection to the Thompson fortune. Former bullies suddenly wanted to be his best friend, while some parents complained that his presence would disrupt the learning environment. The principal, previously dismissive of Nathan's struggles, now hovered attentively, offering special accommodations that Emily firmly declined. Sarah's board of directors expressed concerns about her shifting priorities. "The markets are questioning your focus," one board member warned during a tense meeting. "Thompson Industries needs its CEO, not a doting grandmother." The implied threat in his words made Sarah's blood boil, reminding her of similar pressures that had influenced her decisions 15 years ago. Privacy became a precious commodity. Simple outings turned complicated as photographers followed their every move. Emily's art therapy sessions at the hospital attracted unwanted attention, with other patients selling stories to tabloids. Nathan couldn't even sell his cookies in their old spots without causing a commotion, much to his disappointment. The wealth gap between their worlds sparked public debate. Social media critics accused Emily of orchestrating a publicity stunt to claim her inheritance. Others praised Nathan's entrepreneurial spirit, but questioned Emily's parenting choices. The complexity of their family's story was reduced to simplified narratives of privilege versus poverty, with commentators taking sides without understanding the full picture. Within the exclusive world of Manhattan's elite, rumors circulated. Some of Sarah's longtime associates subtly distanced themselves, uncomfortable with her public embrace of her working-class daughter and grandson. Charity event invitations dropped off, while longtime business partnerships came under sudden review. The social cost of choosing family over appearance became increasingly clear. Nathan struggled with his new identity. "Am I still the cookie boy?" he asked one evening, confused by how his classmates now treated him differently. "Or am I a Thompson?" The question reflected deeper uncertainties about belonging in either world. His simple business of selling cookies to help his mother had become symbolic of larger social issues he was too young to fully understand. Emily faced her own battles with public perception. Art galleries that had previously rejected her work now clamored for exhibitions, clearly more interested in her newfound notoriety than her talent. The former friends from their old neighborhood acted differently, some suggesting she had forgotten her roots. The pressure to prove she wasn't changed by wealth while adapting to her new circumstances wore heavily. Sarah found herself navigating unfamiliar territory in defending her family. Years of carefully cultivated business relationships were tested as she chose Emily's privacy over profitable partnerships. The board's suggestion of a PR campaign to control the narrative was met with firm refusal, leading to tense boardroom battles. The family's cookie baking tradition became unexpectedly controversial. When word spread about Nathan's continued baking despite their changed circumstances, opinions divided sharply. Some praised it as maintaining values, while others viewed it as an unnecessary reminder of their past struggles. High-end bakeries offered to mass-produce their cookies, missing the point entirely. Legal challenges emerged from unexpected quarters. A distant relative suddenly claimed rights to the Thompson fortune, citing Emily's abandonment as proof of Sarah's unfitness to lead the company. Former neighbors came forward with stories to sell, some true, many embellished. The family's lawyers worked overtime managing the deluge of claims and threats. Yet amidst these challenges, their bond strengthened. They developed strategies for handling the attention together. Sarah used her business experience to protect their privacy, while Emily's artistic sensitivity helped them find beauty in simple moments away from public scrutiny. Nathan's natural charm and innocence often diffused tense situations, reminding them all of what truly mattered. Family dinners became their sanctuary, a time when they could be themselves without the world watching. These moments, filled with Nathan's stories, Emily's improving health, and Sarah's growing understanding of simple joys, proved that true wealth couldn't be measured in headlines or stock prices. The idea for 3 Generations Bakery was born during one of their family baking sessions. Nathan, flour dusting his cheeks, had been explaining to Sarah the different techniques he'd developed for selling cookies in various locations. Emily, watching from her chair with growing strength, suddenly remarked, "Maybe it's time to give your cookies a permanent home." Sarah's business instincts immediately kicked in. She saw potential not just in Nathan's recipes, but in their story, a tale of love, perseverance, and family healing told through the simple act of baking cookies. However, she approached carefully, mindful of past tensions around money and independence. "What if we created something together?" she suggested. Not a Thompson Industries venture, but a true family business. The process of establishing the bakery became a bridge between their worlds. Emily's artistic vision transformed an old brownstone in their former neighborhood into a warm, welcoming space. Nathan's expertise in cookie making formed the foundation of their menu, while Sarah's business acumen helped structure the operation. Each family member contributed their strengths, creating something uniquely their own. They decided to hire staff from their old neighborhood, including Mrs. Rodriguez, who had helped them during difficult times. The kitchen was designed to accommodate both professional baking and teaching spaces, where Nathan could continue perfecting his recipes. Emily established an art program for local children, combining her passion for teaching with their new business venture. Opening day arrived with both excitement and trepidation. The media attention they'd been avoiding suddenly worked in their favor, drawing curious customers from across the city. Nathan, dressed in his own chef's uniform complete with a hat that finally fit properly, proudly served his original cookie recipes. The sight of the small boy confidently explaining his baking techniques to amazed customers brought tears to both Emily and Sarah's eyes. But the bakery quickly became more than just a business. Regular customers included both wealthy executives and neighborhood families. Nathan's policy of giving free cookies to children who couldn't afford them, secretly subsidized by Sarah, created goodwill in the community. Emily's art classes filled with local kids, while Sarah found herself enjoying conversations with customers who treated her as simply another grandmother rather than a business magnate. Challenges arose, of course. Some high-end retailers, sensing opportunity, attempted to poach their recipes for mass production. Traditional bakeries complained about their rapid success, suggesting unfair advantages due to the Thompson connection. Health department inspectors seemed to visit with unusual frequency, perhaps hoping to find problems in the feel-good story. But the family faced each challenge together. When a competing chain tried to intimidate them with legal threats, Sarah's corporate lawyers joined forces with a local community advocate. When supply costs threatened their ability to maintain affordable prices, Emily developed new recipes using seasonal ingredients. Nathan's innovative pay-what-you-can cookie jar helped ensure no child left hungry. The bakery's success sparked something unexpected: healing within the broader community. Former classmates who had bullied Nathan now attended his baking workshops, learning both cooking skills and humility. Wealthy customers found themselves chatting with local residents over coffee and cookies, breaking down social barriers that had seemed insurmountable. But Emily's health continued to improve as she split her time between managing the bakery and teaching art. The physical activity, combined with the joy of creating something meaningful, seemed to accelerate her recovery. Doctors noted the positive impact of having purpose and family support on her condition. Sarah discovered a different kind of satisfaction than what she'd known in corporate success. Watching Nathan teach other children his baking secrets, seeing Emily mentor young artists, and experiencing the daily joy of creating something together gave her life new meaning. The woman known for building skyscrapers found greater pride in helping build a community. The bakery became a symbol of possibility, proof that wealth and warmth, success and social responsibility, family and business could coexist. Local business schools sent students to study their model of community-based entrepreneurship. Social organizations highlighted their hiring practices and community programs. But for Sarah, Emily and Nathan, the greatest success was measured in smaller moments: shared laughter in the kitchen, proud smiles at mastered recipes, and the simple joy of being together. As 3 generations bakery celebrated its first successful month, the family stood together in their kitchen after closing time. Nathan, still in his chef's hat, was experimenting with a new recipe. Emily sat sketching designs for their seasonal window display, while Sarah reviewed their books with reading glasses perched on her nose. The scene perfectly captured their journey: 3 generations, once broken apart by fear and pride, now united in creating something beautiful together. The transformation within each family member became evident as their bakery venture flourished. Emily, once defined by her illness and struggles, discovered a new identity as both artist and mentor. The art therapy program she started at the bakery attracted not only children but adults seeking healing through creativity. Her own artwork, displayed on the bakery walls, began selling to customers who appreciated its raw honesty rather than her Thompson connection. Sarah's evolution proved the most dramatic. The feared business titan learned to measure success in smiles rather than stock prices. Board members were shocked when she began delegating more corporate responsibilities to focus on family time. During one crucial merger negotiation, she surprised everyone by excusing herself to attend Nathan's school science fair. Some investments, she explained, yield returns that can't be measured in dollars. Nathan blossomed in ways that touched everyone around him. While maintaining his role as the bakery's chief cookie expert, he slowly reclaimed the childhood that circumstances had previously denied. But he joined the school baseball team, made genuine friends who liked him for himself rather than his grandmother's name, and even experienced the luxury of occasionally just being a regular 8-year-old boy. The healing between mother and daughter progressed in subtle ways. Emily began sharing stories of her years in foster care, while Sarah opened up about her own mother's illness. Their shared pain, once a wall between them, became a foundation for understanding. During quiet moments in the bakery kitchen, they would bake together, the simple act of measuring ingredients building bridges across 15 years of silence. Sarah's corporate persona softened noticeably. Employees at Thompson Industries whispered about her transformed management style. The CEO, who once demanded quarterly profits above all else, now emphasized work-life balance and family-friendly policies. When questioned about this change, she simply pointed to a framed photo on her desk, 3 generations covered in cookie dough and laughing. Emily's artistic confidence grew alongside her physical strength. She began teaching advanced art classes, her gentle teaching style drawing students from across the city. The woman who once sold paintings on street corners now had galleries competing for her work. Yet she chose to keep her main gallery in the bakery, where art and warmth could blend freely. Nathan's newfound security expressed itself in touching ways. He started a cookie mentor program, teaching other children his baking secrets. When a new student arrived at school from difficult circumstances, Nathan was the first to offer friendship and a warm cookie. His emotional intelligence, forged in hardship, helped others navigate their own challenges. The relationship between grandmother and grandson deepened uniquely. Sarah discovered the joy of simple pleasures through Nathan's eyes, flying kites in Central Park, building blanket forts in the penthouse, or simply watching cartoons together on Saturday mornings. These moments, once considered a waste of time by the business mogul, became her most treasured hours. Emily's health improvements paralleled her emotional healing. The doctors were amazed by her progress, attributing it not just to medical treatment but to the profound changes in her life circumstances. The constant support of family, the creative fulfillment of teaching, and the daily joy of working in the bakery contributed to her recovery in ways science couldn't fully explain. The family's living arrangements evolved organically. While maintaining the penthouse, they spent increasing time in an apartment above the bakery, finding comfort in its cozy spaces. Sarah, who once needed luxury to feel secure, discovered that home wasn't about square footage, but about the love contained within its walls. Their individual growth reflected in their interactions with others. Emily began counseling other single mothers, sharing her journey from street vendor to successful business owner. Sarah established a foundation supporting medical research and helping families affected by genetic diseases. Nathan's natural empathy made him a beloved figure in the neighborhood, known for his ability to brighten anyone's day with a warm cookie and a kind word. The media's perception of them shifted as well. Initial sensational headlines gave way to thoughtful pieces about family reconciliation and social responsibility. Their story inspired others to heal their own family rifts, proving that it's never too late for second chances. But their personal transformations created a ripple effect throughout their community. The bakery became more than a business, it became a place where barriers broke down, where wealth and poverty met over shared cookies, where art and commerce coexisted harmoniously. In finding their own healing, they had inadvertently created a space for others to heal as well. The true strength of their newly forged family bonds faced its ultimate test during the holiday season. As Christmas approached, Sarah proposed hosting a grand celebration at the penthouse, inviting not only their immediate family but also the extended Thompson clan who had previously shunned Emily. The suggestion sparked intense discussion about identity, forgiveness, and the meaning of family. Emily initially resisted, memories of past rejection still raw. "They didn't want us when we had nothing," she pointed out during a quiet moment in the bakery kitchen. Nathan, arranging his special holiday cookies, looked up with wisdom beyond his years. "Maybe they need to learn what we learned, that the best things aren't about having stuff." His simple observation sparked a transformation in how they approached the gathering. Instead of hosting at the penthouse, they decided to hold the celebration at the bakery. The space that represented their journey from hardship to healing seemed the perfect setting. Sarah's wealthy relatives would need to step out of their comfort zone, just as she had done. The preparation became a family project, with each member contributing their unique strengths. Nathan took charge of the holiday baking, creating an elaborate cookie display that told their family story through his recipes. Each variety represented a chapter in their journey: the original survival cookies he'd sold on the street, the healing cookies from Emily's hospital stay, and new creations celebrating their unity. The display became a tangible timeline of their transformation. Emily transformed the bakery's walls with a series of paintings capturing their journey. The centerpiece showed 3 pairs of hands, small, medium, and large, working dough together. The artwork spoke volumes about their healed relationships, drawing emotional responses from even the most stoic visitors. Sarah's business associates, accustomed to sterile corporate environments, found themselves moved by the raw honesty of the display. The evening of the gathering arrived with nervous energy. Sarah's relatives appeared uncomfortable initially, their designer clothes out of place in the homey bakery setting. But Nathan's warm welcome, offering each guest a personalized cookie selection, began breaking down barriers. His genuine enthusiasm proved contagious, making it impossible to maintain pretenses. Emily's art students performed a holiday concert, their young voices filling the space with joy. The children came from all backgrounds, some from Sarah's elite social circle, others from their old neighborhood. Their harmony demonstrated the possibility of bridging social divides, a living metaphor for the family's own journey. The turning point came when Sarah stood to address the gathering. Instead of her usual polished corporate speeches, she spoke from the heart about loss, regret, and redemption. She acknowledged her past mistakes, her voice breaking as she described the years wasted through fear and pride. The vulnerability of the mighty Sarah Thompson touched everyone present, reshaping family dynamics that had seemed set in stone. Unexpected moments of connection emerged throughout the evening. Sarah's youngest sister, who had once supported the decision to send Emily away, found herself in tears while helping Nathan decorate cookies. Emily's former art teacher from foster care days arrived with a portfolio of her childhood drawings, preserved all these years in hope of reunion. Even the Thompson family patriarch, known for his stern demeanor, was seen laughing as Nathan taught him the proper technique for cookie dough consistency. The bakery's community aspect played a crucial role in the celebration. Regular customers dropped by with holiday wishes, their genuine affection for the family obvious to all. The contrast between these warm interactions and the formal relationships of the Thompson world made a lasting impression on the extended family. They witnessed firsthand how true wealth could be measured in ways beyond money. As the evening progressed, the artificial boundaries between family members began dissolving. Conversations flowed more naturally, laughter became more frequent, and the initial awkwardness gave way to genuine connection. The smell of fresh baked cookies, the warmth of shared stories, and the visible love between 3 generations worked magic on even the most hardened hearts. The night ended with an impromptu cookie baking session, designer clothes dusted with flour as multiple generations of Thompsons learned Nathan's special techniques. Sarah's relatives, who had never set foot in a kitchen, found themselves enchanted by the simple joy of creating something with their hands. The sight of Manhattan's elite earnestly following an 8-year-old's baking instructions became a powerful symbol of their family's transformation. As the last guests departed, Emily, Sarah, and Nathan stood together in their flour-covered bakery. The space that had witnessed their individual healing had now facilitated healing for their extended family as well. They had proved that bonds of love could transcend class divisions, past hurts, and years of separation. Their story started with the small boy selling cookies in the snow, had evolved into a testament to the power of forgiveness and the enduring strength of family love. The crisis struck without warning during a busy afternoon at the bakery. Emily, who had been teaching an art class, suddenly collapsed mid-sentence. The sound of her falling brought Nathan running from the kitchen, still clutching his cookie tray. The sight of his mother lying unconscious, her breathing shallow and labored, triggered memories of their darkest days. Sarah, arriving moments after receiving the emergency call, found Nathan performing the breathing exercises they'd practiced, his small hands trembling as he counted out the rhythms. His medical notebook lay open beside him, filled with detailed observations he'd never stopped recording despite their improved circumstances. The paramedics praised his quick thinking, but the fear in their eyes told a different story. At the hospital, the diagnosis hit like a thunderbolt. Emily's genetic condition had mutated, rendering their current treatment protocol ineffective. The doctors spoke in hushed tones about aggressive progression and limited options. Sarah, who had believed her wealth could solve any problem, found herself facing an enemy that couldn't be bought off or negotiated with. Nathan refused to leave his mother's side, setting up a small baking station in the corner of her hospital room. The nurses, touched by his determination, bent rules to allow his daily cookie baking ritual. "Mom always says the smell of fresh cookies makes everything better," he explained, his voice steady even as tears threatened to fall. The medical team worked tirelessly, trying experimental treatments and consulting specialists worldwide. Sarah deployed every resource at her disposal, making calls, arranging transfers, demanding answers. But for the first time in her life, her power and influence seemed insufficient against the relentless progress of the disease. Emily drifted in and out of consciousness, her lucid moments filled with worried glances at Nathan. During one clear moment, she grabbed Sarah's hand with surprising strength. "Promise me," she whispered. "Promise you won't abandon him like you did me." The words cut deeper than any business loss Sarah had ever faced. The bakery remained open, run by staff who understood its importance to the family. Regular customers left notes and flowers, while Nathan's students continued their baking lessons, each child determined to perfect their techniques before their teacher's mother returned. The community support manifested in small but meaningful ways: meals delivered, prayers offered, shoulders provided for tears. Sarah found herself sleeping in the hospital chair beside Emily's bed, her corporate empire running on autopilot, as she focused solely on her daughter's fight. The board's concerns about her absence went unanswered. Some battles were more important than business. In quiet moments, she would catch Nathan watching her, his eyes holding questions no child should have to contemplate. But the setback revealed the depth of their family bonds, forged through adversity and strengthened by love. Nathan's resilience amazed the hospital staff. He maintained his daily routine of baking, studying, and caring for his mother, all while keeping detailed notes on her condition. His determination to stay strong mirrored the same spirit that had once driven him to sell cookies in the snow. Emily's art students organized a gallery show in the hospital corridor, filling the sterile space with color and hope. Each piece told a story of healing and love, creating a vibrant pathway to her room. The contrast between the medical equipment and the emotional artwork perfectly captured their family's journey: beauty and pain, hope and fear, all intertwined. As days turned to weeks, the initial crisis stabilized, but uncertainty loomed. The doctors spoke cautiously about experimental treatments and clinical trials. Sarah found herself facing a parent's worst nightmare: watching her child suffer while feeling powerless to help. The woman who had built an empire on control and precision now learned the hardest lesson of all: some things in life cannot be managed, only endured with love and courage. Under the strain of Emily's health crisis, carefully healed wounds began to reopen. During one particularly tense evening in the hospital waiting room, Sarah's attempt to take control of the medical decisions sparked an explosive confrontation. "You don't get to make these choices," Emily snapped, her voice hoarse but fierce. "You lost that right 15 years ago." The outburst unleashed years of suppressed pain. Emily, weakened by treatments but fueled by fear and old resentments, laid bare the full impact of her abandonment. She spoke of nights in foster care, crying herself to sleep, watching other children reunite with parents while she remained alone. Each word stripped away the veneer of reconciliation they had carefully built. Nathan, witnessing this from his corner of the waiting room, dropped his cookie tray with a clatter that echoed through the sterile hallway. The sound startled both women into silence, making them realize their youngest family member was absorbing every painful word. His face showed the same fear they'd worked so hard to protect him from: the fear of losing his family all over again. Sarah's protective walls, softened by months of family connection, suddenly rebuilt themselves. Her corporate mask slipped back into place, a defensive reflex against emotional pain. The transformation was subtle but clear. Her voice took on its old boardroom tone, her posture stiffened, and the warmth drained from her eyes. It was as if the grandmother who baked cookies had vanished, replaced by the ice queen of Wall Street. The medical staff noticed the shift in family dynamics. The easy cooperation of previous weeks dissolved into tense discussions about treatment options and visiting hours. Emily began refusing Sarah's presence during doctor consultations, while Sarah responded by sending her lawyers to oversee medical decisions. The unity that had characterized their family's journey threatened to shatter under the weight of resurging trust issues. Nathan, caught in the middle, retreated into himself. His daily baking continued, but the joy disappeared from the ritual. His medical notebook entries became shorter, more clinical, as if recording data about strangers rather than his family. The staff would find him late at night, curled up in the hospital chapel, whispering prayers that sounded more like negotiations with fate. The bakery, once a symbol of their healed relationships, became a battleground of silent tensions. Sarah's suggestions about temporary closure were met with fierce resistance from Emily, who saw it as another attempt to control her life. The warmth that had characterized their family business cooled, noticed by regular customers who sensed the change in atmosphere. Old photographs appeared on Emily's hospital bedside table, images from before the abandonment, when they had been a happy mother and daughter. Sarah recognized them as silent accusations, reminders of promises broken and trust betrayed. The sight of her younger self, smiling and holding a small Emily, became a daily reminder of her greatest failure. The genetic nature of Emily's illness added another layer of guilt to Sarah's burden. "You didn't just abandon me," Emily said during one pain-filled night. "You left me not knowing about this disease. I could have been prepared, could have made different choices." The words hung in the air, heavy with implications about Nathan's future. The medical team, observing the family's deterioration, warned about the negative impact of stress on Emily's recovery. The head nurse pulled Sarah aside one evening, speaking plainly, "Your daughter's fighting two battles, one against her disease and one against her past. She needs her mother, not her manager." These words struck Sarah deeply, forcing her to confront the pattern she was repeating. In trying to protect and control, she was once again pushing away those she loved most. The realization came with a bitter understanding: sometimes the deepest wounds are the ones we inflict, while trying to prevent pain. Meanwhile, Nathan continued his quiet vigil, his presence a constant reminder of what was at stake. His small figure, moving between his mother's room and the hospital kitchen, became a living symbol of their family's resilience and what they stood to lose if they couldn't find their way back to forgiveness. The breaking point came during a critical medical consultation. The doctors presented a radical treatment option, an experimental procedure that offered hope but carried significant risks. The ensuing argument between Sarah and Emily erupted in front of the entire medical team, their voices echoing down the hospital corridors. "You don't get to decide this," Emily's words cut through the sterile air. "Just like you decided to throw me away, you think you can control everything with your money and power." Her monitor began beeping alarmingly as her agitation grew, causing the nurses to rush forward with concern. Sarah, her corporate armor cracking, finally shattered. "I was trying to protect you," she screamed, tears streaming down her face. "I watched my mother die from this same disease. I couldn't bear to have you watch me die too. But instead I'm watching you." Her voice broke completely, decades of guilt and fear pouring out. Nathan, who had been quietly arranging his cookie display in the corner, suddenly stepped between them. His small voice carried the weight of wisdom beyond his years. "Stop it. You're both so scared of losing each other that you're pushing each other away. Don't you see? We're supposed to be 3 generations, not 3 separate people." The room fell silent. Emily's monitors continued their urgent beeping as tears rolled down her cheeks. Sarah stood frozen, her usually impeccable appearance disheveled, mascara streaking her face. The medical team watched in stunned silence as Nathan continued, his voice trembling but determined. "Mom, Grandma Sarah left because she was scared, just like you get scared when I want to do things on my own. And Mom's angry because being left alone hurts, like when I used to wait all day to sell just one cookie. But being angry and scared is making Mom sicker, and I can't." His voice finally broke as sobs overtook him. The sight of Nathan's tears became the catalyst they needed. Emily reached for her son with one hand and her mother with the other. Sarah moved forward automatically, drawn by a force stronger than pride or fear. The three generations collided in an embrace that spoke louder than words, their tears mingling as monitors beeped and medical staff quietly withdrew. In that moment of raw emotion, the carefully constructed walls between them crumbled completely. The powerful CEO, the resistant daughter, and the wise child merged into something simpler and more profound, a family bound by love and fear, hope and pain, facing an uncertain future together. As they held each other, Nathan whispered his daily prayer, one he'd been reciting since his cookie-selling days. Please let us stay together. Please let us be okay. The simple plea, spoken with a child's pure faith, became their shared prayer, their shared hope, their shared strength. The breaking point had shattered their remaining defenses, but in doing so it cleared the way for true healing to begin. They would face whatever came next: experimental treatments, uncertain outcomes, fearful nights, not as separate individuals wounded by the past, but as a family united by love and understanding. The truth emerged during a quiet evening in Emily's hospital room. Sarah, organizing medical documents, came across the genetic test results she'd received months ago. Her hands trembled as she finally shared the story she'd kept hidden for decades, the real reason behind her abandonment of Emily. "Your grandmother didn't just die from this disease," Sarah began, her voice barely above a whisper. "She made me promise to protect you from watching her decline. She said no child should have to witness their mother waste away." The medical file in her hands contained proof of the genetic link spanning 3 generations: grandmother, mother, and daughter. Emily, propped up in a hospital bed, listened as Sarah revealed how she'd discovered she carried the same gene. "When the doctors told me I could pass it to you, I thought pushing you away would spare you the pain I went through. Instead, I left you vulnerable and alone, not even knowing what you might face." Nathan, who had been pretending to sleep on the small couch, sat up and moved closer. His medical notebook, filled with detailed observations of his mother's symptoms, suddenly took on new meaning. The patterns he'd documented matched the progression described in Sarah's old medical files. The revelation continued as Sarah explained how she'd tracked Emily's health from afar, hiring private investigators to monitor for any signs of the disease. "Every time I received a report saying you were healthy, I convinced myself I'd made the right choice. But when I saw Nathan selling cookies for your medicine, I realized my decision had only caused more pain." Emily's anger at the abandonment began to shift, transforming into understanding of her mother's misguided attempt at protection. "You should have told me," she said softly. "We could have faced it together." The monitors tracking her vital signs showed her heart rate steadying as the weight of this truth settled between them. Nathan, displaying his usual wisdom, picked up his grandmother's medical file and placed it beside his own notebook. "Look," he said, "we've been fighting the same thing all along, just in different ways. Mom fights with cookies and art, Grandma fights with money and doctors, and I fight by keeping notes and staying strong." Sarah moved to sit on Emily's bed, taking both her daughter's hand and her grandson's. "I thought I was protecting you by staying away," she admitted, "but real protection means standing together, even when it's scary. Especially when it's scary." The truth, finally spoken aloud, filled the hospital room with a strange mix of sorrow and relief. 3 generations linked not just by love and determination, but by a shared challenge that had both torn them apart and ultimately brought them together. The secret that had driven Sarah's decisions now became a bond, a shared understanding that would shape their path forward. As night fell over the hospital, the family sat together, no longer separated by unspoken truths. Nathan pulled out a fresh batch of cookies, their familiar scent filling the room with comfort. Some battles, they now understood, were meant to be fought as one. The path to true reconciliation began in small moments following the revelation of their shared genetic legacy. Emily started asking Sarah about her grandmother's battle with the disease, seeking to understand the fear that had driven her mother's choices. Each conversation, though painful, helped bridge the 15-year gap between them. Sarah discovered the healing power of vulnerability as she shared stories of her own mother's decline, of nights spent terrified she would face the same fate, of the crushing guilt that followed her decision to send Emily away. The mighty CEO of Thompson Industries would often break down during these conversations, her corporate mask completely forgotten in the face of raw emotional honesty. Nathan's role in their healing process proved invaluable. He began organizing what he called cookie therapy sessions, where difficult conversations were accompanied by baking together. Something about the familiar ritual of measuring ingredients and kneading dough made it easier to address painful memories. His innocent questions often cut through tension, forcing both women to confront and resolve their lingering resentments. The hospital staff noticed the change in family dynamics. Where there had been stiff formality, genuine warmth emerged. Emily began including Sarah in her medical decisions, while Sarah learned to offer support without trying to control outcomes. They developed a new language of love, expressed through shared fears, hopes, and simple daily moments. The bakery became a sanctuary for their healing process. During Emily's stronger days, they would sit in the quiet hours after closing, Sarah learning the stories behind each recipe Nathan had created during their years of separation. Every cookie held memories: the chocolate chip that had sold best on cold days, the sugar cookies that reminded Emily of her art students, the special recipe that had earned their first regular customers. One particularly significant moment came when Emily asked Sarah to teach her the cookies her grandmother used to make. As they worked side by side in the bakery kitchen, 3 generations of family recipes merged: Sarah's mother's traditional cookies, Emily's artistic innovations, and Nathan's survival-inspired creations. The process of baking became a metaphor for their reconciliation, different ingredients combining to create something new and wonderful. The community around them supported their healing journey. Regular customers who had witnessed their earlier tensions now celebrated their growing closeness. Nathan's baking students and Emily's art pupils created a joint exhibition at the bakery, depicting their family's story through paintings and cookie designs. The event became a celebration of redemption and second chances. Sarah learned to express her love in new ways, less focused on financial support and more on emotional presence. She would sit for hours listening to Emily describe her art projects or Nathan explain his latest cookie innovation. The woman who once measured success in profit margins now found joy in simply being present for family dinners and bedtime stories. Emily, in turn, began to see her mother's abandonment through new eyes. While the pain didn't disappear, understanding its root in love rather than rejection helped her move toward forgiveness. She started incorporating elements of their story into her artwork, creating pieces that explored themes of separation, fear, and reunion. Nathan watched his mother and grandmother's reconciliation with quiet satisfaction, occasionally offering wisdom that surprised them both. Sometimes, he observed while decorating cookies one evening, love looks like leaving because you're scared, and sometimes it looks like selling cookies in the snow. But mostly it looks like trying again even when it's hard. Their healing wasn't instantaneous or perfect, but it was genuine. Each day brought new opportunities to choose understanding over anger, presence over protection, and love over fear. Together they were writing a new chapter in their family story, one where past wounds became the foundation for deeper connection rather than continued division. The Thompson family's annual Christmas gala became the setting for their public reconciliation. Sarah, breaking with decades of tradition, chose to host it at 3 Generations Bakery rather than the usual luxury hotel. The decision raised eyebrows among Manhattan's elite, but she remained firm healing would happen on their terms in their space. The bakery transformed under their combined vision. Emily's artwork told their family story along the walls, while Nathan's special holiday cookies carried names reflecting their journey: reconciliation rounds, second chance snickerdoodles, and healing heart chocolates. Sarah's corporate connections and Emily's art world friends mingled with their local customers and neighbors, creating an unprecedented mix of social circles. The highlight of the evening came when Sarah took the floor to address the gathered crowd. Instead of her usual business updates, she shared their story openly for the first time. She spoke of fear-driven mistakes, of a mother's misguided protection, and of the small boy selling cookies who had brought them back together. Emily stood beside her, their hands clasped, while Nathan watched proudly from his cookie display. The revelation of their genetic condition and its role in their separation sparked unexpected connections. Other families came forward with similar stories of illness-driven decisions, creating an impromptu support network. The Thompson Foundation announced its new focus on genetic research and family support services, turning private pain into public purpose. Nathan's contribution to the evening touched hearts throughout the room. He had prepared a special cookie box for each guest containing 3 varieties, one representing each generation. The accompanying note explained how each recipe reflected their journey. Sarah's traditional butter cookies, speaking of foundation and heritage, Emily's artistic chocolate swirls representing resilience and creativity, and his own survival cookies symbolizing hope and perseverance. During the evening, Sarah introduced Emily and Nathan to extended family members who had never known of their existence. The initial awkwardness dissolved as Nathan charmed relatives with his baking expertise and business acumen, while Emily's artistic talent and gentle strength won admirers. The Thompson family tree, once carefully pruned to maintain appearances, bloomed anew with authentic connections. The night ended with an unplanned but perfect moment. As the last guests departed, 3 generations of Thompson women found themselves alone in the bakery kitchen. Without discussion, they began preparing a batch of cookies together, Sarah measuring ingredients with her usual precision, Emily adding artistic flourishes to the decoration, and Nathan supervising their technique with playful authority. Their laughter echoed through the empty bakery, healing the last shadows of their past separation. The local paper's coverage of the event focused not on the society names present or the business implications, but on the simple power of love and forgiveness. The photograph that accompanied the article showed 3 generations of Thompsons, covered in flour and grinning at the camera, their joy unmistakably genuine. Below it ran Nathan's quote, "Sometimes the best cookies come from recipes that almost went wrong." 1 year after Emily's health crisis, 3 Generations Bakery hosted a unique celebration. The occasion marked not just Emily's successful recovery, but the anniversary of the day a small boy selling cookies in the snow had brought a broken family back together. The bakery, decorated with Emily's artwork and filled with the warm scent of Nathan's special recipes, buzzed with the energy of gathered friends, family, and community members. Sarah, dressed casually in jeans and a flour-dusted apron rather than her usual business attire, worked alongside Nathan at the main counter. The sight of Manhattan's most powerful CEO carefully following her grandson's instructions on proper cookie decorating technique drew smiles from longtime customers who remembered their journey's beginning. Emily, healthy and radiant, moved through the crowd with an artist's grace, her gallery section displaying a new series titled 3 Generations of Love. The paintings told their story through symbols: a small boy's silhouette against falling snow, hands of different sizes intertwined, a family tree with roots made of cookie dough. Each piece captured a moment in their path from separation to unity. Nathan had prepared a special menu for the occasion, featuring variations of his original survival cookies alongside new creations that represented their healed relationships. His foundation cookies, made from a blend of his grandmother's traditional recipe and his own innovations, became an instant favorite, symbolizing how old and new could create something beautiful together. The celebration reached its peak when local officials arrived to present 3 Generations Bakery with an award for community impact. The citation praised not just their business success, but their role in bridging social divides and creating a space where all segments of society could find common ground over shared cookies and conversation. Sarah's board members, who had once questioned her shift in priorities, now brought their own families to the celebration. The sight of their children learning cookie decorating techniques from Nathan while their parents engaged with Emily's art demonstrated how thoroughly the Thompson family had transformed their corner of Manhattan society. The medical team that had supported Emily's recovery attended as honored guests. They watched with joy as their former patient, once fighting for her life, now danced with her son and mother to the music of a local band. The head nurse remarked that sometimes the best medicine wasn't found in prescriptions but in the healing power of love and forgiveness. As evening approached, the 3 generations of Thompsons gathered behind the counter for a familiar ritual, baking one last batch of cookies together. Their synchronized movements, developed through countless shared hours in the kitchen, showed how far they had come from the days of separation and hurt. The celebration ended with Nathan distributing his newest creation, Future Promise cookies, made with ingredients representing hope, unity, and endless possibilities. As guests departed with their special treats, many noted how the bakery had become more than a business. It was a testament to the power of second chances and the enduring strength of family love. Looking around at their gathered community, Sarah, Emily, and Nathan shared a moment of quiet gratitude. Their journey from broken pieces to wholeness had not just healed their family but had created ripples of hope and healing throughout their community. The depth of their individual transformations became evident in the year following their reunion. Sarah Thompson, once known only for her corporate achievements, was featured in Business Weekly not for a merger or acquisition, but for revolutionizing corporate culture through family-first policies. The article highlighted how Thompson Industries had become a model for companies balancing profit with human connection. Emily's artistic career soared, but not in the way the art world expected. Rather than pursuing prestigious galleries, she focused on community art therapy programs, using her experience to help others heal through creativity. Her series From Streets to Suite, documenting their family's journey, toured schools and community centers, inspiring other fractured families to seek reconciliation. Nathan's growth was perhaps the most remarkable. While maintaining his role as the bakery's cookie expert, he finally embraced the childhood he'd nearly missed. He joined the school baseball team, started a cookie baking club for other kids, and most importantly, learned to let others take care of him sometimes. His notebook, once filled with worried medical observations, now contained baseball statistics alongside cookie recipes. But the bakery evolved into something far beyond a business. Under their combined influence, it became a model for social enterprise, offering job training for struggling parents, art therapy sessions for troubled youth, and a gathering place where social barriers dissolved over shared treats. The Thompson Foundation matched every dollar of profit with funding for genetic research and family support services. Sarah's transformation was particularly profound in the corporate world. Board meetings now included discussions of social impact alongside profit margins. She became known for mentoring other executives on balancing family responsibilities with business leadership, often using her own story as a cautionary tale with a redemptive ending. Emily's recovery became a source of hope for other families battling genetic conditions. She and Sarah co-founded a support group, sharing their experience of how facing health challenges together had healed their relationship. Their story of reconciliation inspired many families to rebuild bridges that illness had burned. But the family's influence spread through unexpected channels. Nathan's simple philosophy of baking with love became a viral sensation, leading to a children's book series about a young baker who helps people solve problems with cookies and kindness. His school presentations about perseverance and family love regularly left adults in tears. Local businesses began adopting their model of community integration. The wealthy Manhattan neighborhood, once known for its exclusivity, transformed into a more welcoming space. Other family businesses sought their advice on bridging social divides while maintaining profitability. Their personal healing influenced professional choices. Sarah stepped back from daily CEO duties to spend more time with family, while maintaining strategic oversight of the company. Emily balanced her art career with teaching, finding joy in nurturing young talents. Nathan, while still the bakery's heart, learned to delegate some responsibilities so he could enjoy being a child. The media's portrayal of their family shifted from scandal to inspiration. Instead of focusing on the abandoned daughter or the cookie-selling child, stories now highlighted their journey of reconciliation and their ongoing work to help other families heal. Their experience became a testament to the possibility of changing family legacies. The most significant change was invisible to outsiders the way they had learned to trust and lean on each other. Sarah no longer tried to solve everything with money. Emily accepted help without feeling diminished, and Nathan understood that strength sometimes meant asking for support. Together, they had discovered that true wealth lay not in bank accounts or business success, but in the bonds of family love. On the 5th anniversary of Three Generations Bakery, the family gathered for a private moment before their public celebration. The bakery, now a landmark in Manhattan, stood as a testament to their journey from brokenness to healing. Nathan, now 13 but still maintaining his chief cookie expert status, had prepared a special batch of what he called legacy cookies for the occasion. Each ingredient represents part of our story, he explained to the gathered family. The salt represents our tears, the sugar our joy, the flour our foundation, and the chocolate chips are the sweet surprises that brought us together. His wisdom, though matured, still carried the pure insight that had first helped bridge the gap between his mother and grandmother. Emily, fully recovered and radiant with health, had created a triptych for the bakery's wall. 3 panels showed their journey, the first depicting a small boy in the snow, the second showing 3 pairs of hands kneading dough together, and the third revealing their family whole and united. Art, like love, she said, has the power to heal what seems permanently broken. Sarah, who had found a balance between corporate leadership and family connection, added her own reflection. We thought we were building a bakery. She shared, but we were really building a bridge between past and present, between hurt and healing, between different worlds that needed to connect. Their story had become more than a tale of family reconciliation. It stood as a beacon of hope for others facing similar struggles. The bakery's walls now held hundreds of photos of other families who had found their way back to each other, inspired by 3 generations who had proven that it's never too late for love to heal old wounds. The true message of their journey emerged not in grand gestures but in daily moments: Sarah attending Nathan's baseball games instead of board meetings, Emily teaching art classes while her mother proudly watched, Nathan experimenting with new recipes while both women offered taste-testing support. They had learned that family bonds, like the best cookie dough, required patience, care, and the right blend of ingredients to achieve perfection. Their legacy extended beyond their immediate family. The Thompson Foundation's work in genetic research had helped countless families face similar health challenges together rather than apart. The bakery's community programs had bridged social divides, creating connections that transcended wealth and status. Most importantly, their story had shown that even the deepest wounds could heal with love, understanding, and perhaps a few well-timed cookies. As they stood together in their bakery, 3 generations strong, they embodied a simple but profound truth: that true wealth isn't measured in dollars or real estate, but in the strength of family bonds and the courage to rebuild what was broken. Nathan's legacy cookies, shared among them in this quiet moment, carried the taste of their journey, sweet, complex, and made richer by the challenges they had overcome together. Their story, which began with a small boy selling cookies in the snow, had become a testament to the enduring power of love, the possibility of second chances, and the truth that it's never too late to heal a broken family, as long as hearts remain open to the possibility of forgiveness. If this story of family healing and redemption touched your heart, please take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. What moments resonated most with you? We'd love to hear your own stories of family reconciliation and second chances. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content that celebrates the power of love and forgiveness. Every like, share, and subscription helps us continue creating meaningful stories that remind us of what truly matters in life. Thank you for being part of our community, and please share this video with someone who might need a reminder that it's never too late for healing.